It's time to talk sports. It's Hacksaw's Headlines, a panorama of the world of sports, stories, comments, and opinions.
Touchdown, San Diego!
Now, here's iconic sports talk show host Lee Hacksaw Hamilton and co-host John Riley.
Who wants to talk sports on a Thursday? We do, from our DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Center studios in San Diego and on John Riley's road trip. We welcome you to our great sports weekend. Hacksaw's podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers, 9 stores in San Diego. They've been in business for more than 100 years. You got projects. We want you to consider them your best friend at DIXIELINE Lumber. And by North County Eye Center, Poway and Escondido. We all need help for our eyes somewhere down road. When that time arrives, think about these people. They've been in business since the 1970s. North County Eye Center, Poway and Escondido. This is Lee Hacksaw Hamilton in San Diego. John Riley's on a road trip per the norm, getting ready to watch college basketball in the Mountain West Conference Tournament. So we are here with kind of a unique Thursday edition of Hacksaw's Headlines. We will not have fans forum today. We will get back in the studios next Monday. John, we have an absolute ton of late-breaking stories to talk about. I know you enjoy road trips. You went away, though, at the wrong time.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a great trip. You know, we went and saw some Padre games in Peoria. Now we're here in Vegas to go to the Mountain West Tournament, and we're still getting in Hacksaw's Headlines. I know you're playing hurt, but the fans love to see you out here, Lee. So where do you want to start?
Let's start with Major League Baseball, and let's start with what happened last night. Let's start with the Padres and the Chicago White Sox trade. AJ Preller shocked the baseball world again. The 4-for-1 deal to get the ace of the White Sox pitching staff, Dylan Cease. Had a weird feeling last night when I was writing my one man's opinion column. I wonder if AJ Preller, when he was a kid on Long Island, collected baseball cards. And if all he did was trade baseball cards, I'll trade you my Yankees team baseball card for your Mets team baseball card and 3 pieces of bubblegum from the next packet of Topps cards that you buy at the drugstore. This guy's amazing. What he's done is it's phenomenal. He needed pitching. He went out and got the deal with the Yankees and Juan Soto. They still look short in terms of starting pitching. And he goes out and he gets a vested veteran who can get the job done. Dylan Cease, 43-35, 3.83 career ERA, power arm. Guy's got 792 strikeouts in 658 innings, an amazing stat, and he's pitched for the most part on a really bad team. Now, there was a price to pay. I'm sure we're going to argue. They gave up the top Class A pitcher they had gotten in the Soto deal, Drew Thorpe, gave up a hard-throwing relief pitcher in Giro Iriarte. Between those two guys, 14 innings, no runs allowed in spring training. They moved out long reliever, setup guy Steve Wilson. They traded an 18-year-old young outfielder who really hit well down in the lower minor leagues, Samuel Zavella. They've rented a power arm for probably 2 years. Price tag this year, $8 million. Next year, arbitration eligible, probably $10 million. But there's a sidebar story here, John. I'll just try to make this brief, and then you can yell at me that I'm right or wrong. We'll talk show hosts aren't wrong. There's a spinoff because this Juan Soto trade from Washington, trade to New York, is all linked to this. You know, they made the deal, an 8-player trade with the Nationals to get Soto 2 years ago. They parted ways with Mackenzie Gore and C.J. Abram, young minor league hitting outfielders James Wood and Robert Hassel, and young pitching sensation Jaron Susana. Then Soto to the Yankees in a 5-for-1 deal. So the only guys that remain by virtue of the trade with Soto are Dylan Cease coming here, Michael King coming here, Brito and Vasquez, and a backup catcher. In essence, they traded 9 players to Washington and the White Sox. That includes trading Soto in these transactions. Like it? Did they pay too much? Do they have to do it? John Riley, instead of broadcasting from left field, is broadcasting from Las Vegas. Give me your first reaction when you heard about the Cease trade while you're on the highway, and now the morning after. What do you think?
Love the trade. Absolutely love it. And, Drew Thorpe, we saw him pitch in Peoria. He's a crafty pitcher, got that curveball changeup. He's going to be good. He's like a like a Zach Gallen, Greg Maddux type. So, the White Sox are getting someone good, but Dylan Cease, I mean, that guy's legit. He's not going to be a number one on the Padres, but he's like a 3 or a 2. I mean, he's a darn good pitcher. And I think we're going to be better off for it. So now we've got really, I'd say 4 starting pitchers that we think we can count on, and then we'll figure out that 5th spot.
I also tend to think that Cease is not only established and a veteran and a warrior, Cease is an insurance policy. If something happens to you, Darvish, he's had the elbow bone spur issues. Something happens with Musgrove. He looks to be fully back from the capsule, but you never know because he's a physical force pitcher. If somebody winds up on the DL, you got Cease steps up, and they still have some of the guys who came in the Yankee transaction. So I guess I'll use the word win-win. I think it's definitely a win for the White Sox in terms of volume of young pitchers, and it's a win for the Padres for the next 2 years. But isn't that amazing? They traded 9 players in all, with Soto included in the package, to get Dylan Cease.
We knew AJ Preller was scheming and plotting behind closed doors. You knew something was going to happen. And then the beautiful thing is that Dylan Cease is affordable, and we get him for 2 years. And so this makes a lot of sense. And, if you're trading away Drew Thorpe, it's almost like he was the centerpiece of what came in the Juan Soto deal. So it's almost like sort of kind of Juan Soto for Dylan Cease, and I'll take that for sure, given that we had to unload Soto with the financial requirements.
Yeah, but it wasn't just Soto for Cease.
Right. Well, there's a lot of other pieces, but when you just look at the top names at the top of the list, I'm feeling okay about this. Preller has amassed a huge, library of assets, that he can trade, and he's flipping them. He's just like a dealer here in Vegas.
On we go. Second topic on the table. Padres-Dodgers. This is a hell of a road trip. Heading to South Korea. Just flash this itinerary up on the screen for all of our people. Over 6,200 miles to go from the Cactus League to Seoul, South Korea. They cross 16 time zones. 14 hours on one flight. They left at 8 p.m. on Wednesday. They will arrive at 3:30 a.m. on Friday. 180 people on the travel party. Took a 31-man roster, 16 pitchers included. They believe Dylan Cease will arrive on a separate flight. He'll join them whether or not he pitches in the 2 exhibition games before they open the season against the Dodgers, to be determined. John, you're the international traveler. You've been a lot of places around the world, including West Virginia. So you tell me, how the hell do you do 6,248 miles, 16 time zones, and 14 hours in the air? Wow.
Yeah, I mean, 16 time zones. I mean, that's an unbelievable stat. But I think it's easier to fly. I always get this confused. Is it easier to fly eastbound or westbound with the jet lag? But they've got plenty of days just to kind of reset themselves, and they'll be just fine. And I think it's going to be great seeing them in those exhibition games and all the community activities with the kids out there in Korea.
It was interesting. I've done 2 international flights while I was the voice of the Chargers. We went to Germany. That was an exciting trip, but we were already on the East Coast during the preseason. So we just went from Atlanta to Newfoundland into Germany on the flight. I went to Tokyo to a Chargers-Steelers game. We flew over the North Pole. That was a bitch of a trip. That was like 14 hours in the air. And what I couldn't understand, the Steelers got there quicker than we got there from San Diego. It was just amazing. And by the way, I don't do jet lag real well. That really screwed me up. But that being said, so the Padres will be in South Korea effective on Friday, 2 exhibition games next week, and then the opener 20th, 21st in Seoul against the Dodgers. Okay, so we go from baseball to the topic on the table. Johnny 3-Point there, my co-host at the Mountain West Conference Tournament. There are 6 teams in the conference tournament right now. The combined record of the top 6 teams in the Mountain West, get this stat, 119-32. That's a phenomenal record from, San Diego State to Boise State, etc. Let me ask you this loaded question. Do you view 22-9 as SDSU's record as a successful season or kind of a disappointing season? Because they did get blasted by every big name team in the conference. Most of those were on the road. So John Riley, don't shoot an air ball. Give me a 3-pointer with some theories here. Was this a good season, or was it kind of a disappointment?
I wouldn't say it's a disappointment. I mean, it's just not up to normal San Diego State standards, but the world has shifted with NIL, and all these teams are a lot more competitive. I think Jaden Ledee has turned into this amazing basketball player, far greater than any of us ever expected. So, the years, there's an ebb and flow from year to year, and Dutcher is still leading the ship. I feel good about him.
Tell you what, going to this game against Vegas, and then if they win, they go to the second round and they'll play the big boys again. They're going to need their guards to score. They need their guards, that 3-man veteran experience backcourt, John, to change the tempo of the game and to make things happen, to make Ledee become a Superman. Because his kryptonite right now is everybody around him on the floor, John, is hot and cold, and he never knows what he's going to get. They're also going to need the bad boys to bang, rebound, and hit some threes. And it raises the sidebar question, John, come tourney time against Vegas, will the refs let the bad boys do what they do, bang and get on the boards? This is a really good Aztec team, but it's not played with any consistency. Do you think a neutral floor will make a difference? Or is it not come into play here because there's so many great athletes that have transferred in on all these teams in the Mountain West Conference? And that's why that composite record is 119-32. Everybody, when the big teams in the conference have all got shooters.
Well, Aztec Nation travels really, really well. So I expect the Aztecs to do great. They're a 4.5-point favorite. So I put, $20 on the game. We'll see how that pans out, but it's going to be a terrific tournament. Looking forward to it. And the game's going to start here in about, a few hours.
Guards got to score. Guards got to defend. They will defend because their defense travels, but that backcourt has been hot and cold, Jekyll and Hyde, good and bad. They've got to put points on the board to help Jaden Ledee out. Hey, we get to halftime. Our podcast On the Road is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Center Stores. John, you've used them. I've used them. Very pleased with my windows and screens and doors. That's hugely important when it's cold outside here and blazing hot in the summer. You've used them too. What's your thought on DIXIELINE?
Well, we replaced our front door with DIXIELINE, and we had a door that faced southwest, and it was getting torched from all the sun. And we got this new door that is bulletproof and looks great, and they've got a great selection. So doors, windows, kitchen, bath, decking, DIXIELINE are your friends.
These are the people. We invite you to go sample what they can do for you and your projects. DIXIELINE Lumber. And our podcast is brought to you by North County Eye Centers, Poway and Escondido. We all need help with our eyes somewhere down road. From comprehensive eye care to state-of-the-art technology, basic eye care to special eye care, this is who these people are. Cataracts to glaucoma to cornea surgeries. Extensive screening programs too, vision tests as well. Been in business since the 1970s, serving people in the North County. And a reminder, we're all going to need help with our eyes somewhere down road when that time comes. Remember the name, North County Eye Center, Poway and Escondido. We start the second half, our special broadcast, Hacksaw here in San Diego at the DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Center Studios. Road trip, John Riley at the Mountain West Conference Tournament. We won't have any fans forum today because we are on remote. but we will be back with our regular fans forum for everybody who joins our podcast. That'll be coming up on Monday at 1 p.m. John, first couple of days of NFL free agency, only word I can use, out of control.
The list of free agents in your best 15 minutes of sports this morning was outrageous, and I didn't even know where to begin.
Let's begin with the Chargers. We knew there would be changes coming. I don't know that they've done enough. They've replaced some people, but they've lost some people, and they had to get rid of some people vis-a-vis the salary cap. Your headline says it all. Bolt's got a power running back, a blocking tight end, but they've lost at least 5 people right now. Gus Edwards comes from the Baltimore Ravens, and he is heavy duty. Now, the reason Lamar Jackson's been great is he's got a great running game, one of the best lead running games in the NFL. Gus Edwards, almost 3,400 yards rushing, 4.9 yards per carry. They signed a pass-catching, heavy-duty blocking tight end who did a good job with the Seattle Seahawks, Will Dissly. But there's a price to be paid. They've added at least 2. They said goodbye to Mike Williams with all those injuries. Mike's contract gone. It cost him $20 million cap savings. 309 receptions, 31 touchdowns, but he's missed 28 games, John, in the last 3 years. The stunner was they let first-round draft pick linebacker Kenneth Murray go. Tennessee Titans got a 2-year, $18 million contract. That, to me, is grossly overpaid. I think the sad part, great athlete, got dinged up. They never quite figured out his role, regardless of who the coaching staff was, as to where he should play. Said goodbye to a good guy, Austin Eckler, Washington Commanders. He got the price he'd been chirping for, 2 years, $7 million per season. He had over 6,000 all-purpose yards. Last year, a bit of a downer because of nagging injuries. He's going to do a lot of things in Washington because they don't have a lot of running backs. Said goodbye to Gerald Everett, tight end, caught a pile of passes, blocked some, little bit of an injury problem. Everett goes to the Chicago Bears. A little bit surprised they let go Eric Kendricks. 49ers picked him up at first, then he reneged on the deal. He went to the Dallas Cowboys last night. I guess I was disappointed because longtime Minnesota Viking was not a difference maker. So, John, what they've done, it's going to be a different roster. But what they've done isn't enough because they still got holes, a whole bunch of places, even though philosophically, John, they want to change the personality of the team. They are going to run the damn ball, and they're going to block for that quarterback. And they got a running back, finally, a power running back. And I think now it dictates that what they do in the first round and the second round, they're going to draft offensive linemen because they're going to need people to block for the quarterback and people to block for Gus Edwards. Your thoughts?
Yeah, well, they clearly, the clock is ticking. Justin, Herbert doesn't have, an unlimited time in his career, so they need to put some pieces around him. It was interesting to see that they finally let go of some of those big names. We kind of expected it. But, it seems like the strategy for the team is changing, which is good because what they had before wasn't working.
They'll have a lot of cap space, though. I don't know what else they're going to be able to do in terms of free agency. And by the way, next topic, in terms of free agency, do you know why my eyes are watering and are bleary and bloodshot? I had to track down information. There have been 119 free agents who've changed teams in the first 3 days of NFL free agency. Just absolutely amazing. All right, let's do a quick look-see. AFC West. Raiders, unbelievable payment, $25 million per year. Get Christian Wilkins, really good active defensive tackle from Miami. They also got the gunslinger. Gardner Minshew, Indianapolis Colts, 2 years, $25 million to compete for the Raiders' starting job. Now, they had said, we don't want a band-aided quarterback. What is Minshew? Seems like a band-aided quarterback, unless they're going to use that 13th pick to take one of the second-tier quarterbacks and develop him. Price there, goodbye Jimmy Garoppolo, goodbye Hunter Renfrow. They cleared $19 million in cap space. Broncos, all they're doing is getting rid of players. Russell Wilson, gone, goes to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Jerry Jeudy, wide receiver, traded. They signed a safety. They signed a defensive lineman, but they're not stars. They got massive salary cap problems. They have, as of today, they have $67 million in dead money from guys they got rid of over the last couple of years. And of course, 39 of that is Russell Wilson. So, boy, Denver, they got a lot to make up for. The Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs went in the marketplace, got themselves good tight end, Herb Smith. Cincinnati Bengals, he'll catch some passes along the way. So that's where we are in the AFC West. So Raiders, Broncos, Chiefs, any reaction?
Love the Gardner Minshew pickup by the Raiders. I mean, remember we were talking about
Gunslinger.
Oh, big time. And that kind of fits the swag of, the whole Raider Nation. I like that. He was one of the top backup quarterbacks for a long time in the NFL. So he's the perfect transition guy. Because remember the Raiders, we were speculating maybe they get Russell Wilson and take one of the young kids. Well, Minshew and the young kids, that's a nice plan to go forward with.
However, there was a price to be paid. They lost Josh Jacobs. They're due everything running back. He vacated, went to the NFC Central. They still got an awful lot of holes. And now they've gotten rid of Renfro, so they got holes at wide receiver. I still think they got problems on defense. So they do have cap space now, but most of the players have come off the board. Okay, let's do a summary. NFL, who did the best? We'll put these teams up here on the board. Atlanta has drafted a lot of quality skill guys with number one picks the last group of years. Tremendous tight end, big running back, star wide receiver. They should have a quarterback get the ball to him. Now they got the quarterback. Kirk Cousins, quarterback - entrepreneur. The amount of money that he has gotten, first with the old Washington Redskins, then what he did in Minnesota with contract extensions, and now what he just did in Atlanta, absolutely amazing. Falcons have had themselves a pretty good offseason. Pittsburgh's renting people. We talked about a bridge quarterback. Pittsburgh got Russell Wilson. They got him for $1.1 million. And it wasn't a 2-year deal. It was a 1-year deal. Now, Russell's getting $39 million from the Denver Broncos. But at the end of the day, Russell Wilson will go there for maybe a year. Then maybe there's a contract extension. What he's going to have in Pittsburgh is a power run game and obviously a really good defense. So maybe he bounces back a bit more. Typical Steelers. Patrick Queen, star inside linebacker, tough guy. Baltimore Ravens. They stole him. I was surprised Baltimore put him on the block. They also did something different. They got rid of a bad character, Deontay Johnson, big-time player, big-time complainer. They traded him away, got him out of Pittsburgh. Steelers, I think, have helped themselves short-term. Houston, what they did last year was phenomenal, and what they just did the first couple of days of free agency, beyond explanation. 2 years, $49 million to sign Danielle Hunter, premier pass rusher, Minnesota. Then they made a trade to get the heavy-duty running back, Joe Mixon from Cincinnati. They got Jeff Okudah, former number 1 draft pick, Detroit, a corner, and Tommy Townsend, really good punter from Kansas City. By the way, that means this is Matt Ariza's job in Kansas City because Tommy Townsend had done the punting there last couple of years. Tennessee Titans, wow. A big-time receiver, Cam Ridley from Jacksonville. Tony Pollard, the do-everything running back, pretty productive guy. He comes from the Dallas Cowboys, and they picked up a backup insurance policy quarterback that I thought played pretty well at the end of the season last year, Mason Rudolph of the Steelers. What Detroit does is get players who can play. They traded for Carlton Davis, a cornerback from Tampa, and they picked up pass rusher Marcus Davenport, one of the better ones from New Orleans. Washington Commanders in full rebuild mode, but they got guys who can play. Austin Eckler, Cowboys linebacker Dex Fowler. They're renting Marcus Mariota, the journeyman quarterback. They picked up Bobby Wagner, the ex-Seahawk and Rams linebacker, Cleve Farrell, 49ers pass rusher, Jimmy Chin, cornerback. They've done a lot of things. They had a lot of money for that owner to use. 49ers changing their defensive front. They signed Leonard Floyd, the ex-Ram. Yatir Matos, pretty good pass rusher from Carolina. And then they traded for tough guy inside tackle Malik Collins. John Lynch is doing what John Lynch does best, going to find players. Eagles, we projected this a week ago. He crossed the bridge. Saquon Barkley leaves the New York Football Giants to go to the enemy within the division. He signs in Philadelphia. And the Packers wound up with Josh Jacobs of the Raiders after letting, in a bit of a surprise, Aaron Jones go. That's my assessment of the top ones. What would you look like reading information on 119 different players in 3 days?
Well, I just remember you showed me your notes and the way that you keep track of all this. I mean, do you still have that with you right now? You have those little boxes with all the handwritten notes. I mean, it's incredible how you track every one of these players.
Okay, this is inside information now. I don't want anybody photoshopping this and putting it on Twitter. But this is how I keep track of all the player moves. Now, this is my off-season baseball move. Every team that's made transactions, I pay attention to it. Now, some people would say, hey, dumbass, why don't you just put it in a computer? And my response is, hey, dumbass, that takes time to put it into a computer. And if I'm doing my talk show and on remote, that takes time then to punch it up and find it on my computer. Whereas I just pull my chart out here, and that's my Jimmy Johnson Dallas Cowboy chart of player acquisition. So yes, I am bleeping brilliant plus crazy.
Love that. I love all of that. That's awesome.
I didn't know you were going to pull that on me. Okay, so we go from that. Let's talk about who got hurt the most. I think the Raiders. You lose Josh Jacobs, you lose Hunter Renfrow, you gave up on Jimmy Garoppolo, did get $19 million in cap savings, but most of the players, the good players, marquee players, they're virtually everybody's gone in free agency. What you see now, when you get through the second day of free agency, or third day in this case, what you see is a team loses a cornerback. Okay, I'm going to go in, turn the sheets of paper, find the best journeyman cornerback that's still unsigned. I'll sign him now. Everybody's getting one-year contracts since the second day of free agency. So these guys are just showing up and going places for 1 year to try to earn the next contract. Cowboys, I don't understand this. They lost Tony Pollard. They lost a defensive end. They lost a defensive tackle. One of their linebackers, Leighton Vander Esch, has been forced into retirement. Cowboys are not the same team right now. Just quite don't understand it outside of the acquisition of Eric Kendricks from the Chargers. New England's new coach. You remember we talked about this when he got hired? Jared Mayo said, we're going to burn some cash here and get involved in free agency. And in Foxborough, in the state of New England, are they really excited that they signed Jacoby Brissett? That's their free agent acquisition, along with a couple of backup tight ends and running backs. I don't understand the Patriots because they had volumes of cash. I think 73 million, second most in the league aside from Washington, and they didn't do anything with it. I just don't understand any of that. Carolina, what a disaster. They traded their Pro Bowl defensive end, Brian Burns. He went to the New York Giants for a load of draft picks. They did trade for controversial Steeler receiver Deontay Johnson. They did pick up Ashawn Robinson, pretty hefty defensive tackle from the Rams, but he did well with the Rams because he was playing next to Aaron Donald. So I don't understand Carolina. If you can ever figure out what the hell's going on in Arizona, please let me know. They lose DJ Humphries. They release him. They sign 4 fringe free agents. They got all kinds of problems in their front office. I think they got problems around Kyler Murray with their offense. And the New Orleans Saints, who are in salary cap hell, they got all kinds of problems too. So, John, give me a quick response. Who did the best job? Who did the worst job so far in free agency? Your reaction?
Well, I mean, I can't keep track of all the minutia and the detail like you do. Hey, just for the audience, name a few teams and give me a letter grade on how they're doing on NFL free agency.
Well, in terms of who did well, they paid a phenomenal price. I'd have to give a letter grade of A to the Atlanta Falcons. I'd have to give a letter grade of A to the Houston Texans for the second year in a row. Now, Tennessee needs a lot of help, but, getting a receiver like Ridley and the running back Pollard, I'd probably got to give them an A. And after that, probably a group of Bs. In terms of who's done the worst job, I have to give a C or a D to Dallas. I just don't understand what Jerry Jones is doing there. Obviously, the Patriots went through a radical change. They don't have a bleeping quarterback. Oh, like Jacoby Brissett, but that's, plug-in guy. So that's a big issue. I got to give them probably a D. And I just don't like anything I see about the Arizona Cardinals. So I'm going to give them probably an F right now because there's no players out there. Wow. Final topic on the table, our podcast brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Center Stores with 9 locations serving San Diegans for over 100 years. You got projects, build it, fix it. We guarantee you'll enjoy it. Thanks to DIXIELINE. and by North County Eye Center, Poway and Escondido. These are specialists. We'll all need help with their eyes. A reminder, the roster of people at North County Eye Center, 11 different specialists, 4 surgical specialists serving the North County since the 1970s, North County Eye Center. John, 2 other topics, really bad topics, have to talk about them. The Super Bowl shootings, Kansas City, Dallas Cowboys. The Kansas City District Attorney has charged 3 more young guys with federal firearms violations because of the shooting that killed 1 person, wounded 24 at the end of the Chiefs Super Bowl parade. Remember, they had already arrested 2 and charged them with felony murder, but now they've picked up 3 more federal firearm violations, including they found 3 AR-15s. They found 6 different people fired shots at each other during that Super Bowl incident, and they're still looking for more people. So this is a horrible story, the aftermath of guns, Second Amendment, NRA, and that whole entourage. The other story is what's going on in Dallas. Dak Prescott is involved in a really ugly defamation lawsuit, and it's a real significant thing. He had a relationship with a woman in 2017. After all these years, she's filed a sexual assault lawsuit against him. He went back public, and he said, they tried to extort $100 million from me. They threatened me that if I did not pay them money, they would go public and destroy my reputation. He's filing defamation against her. Now she's filing an additional defamation case against him. It becomes, he said, she said. So John, your thoughts on Kansas City, Super Bowl parade and guns, and Dak Prescott?
Well, you know, the workings, the machinery of justice sometimes take a little bit of time, but I'm happy that they're doing the due diligence and trying to get the right guys and penalize them appropriately. The Dak Prescott thing, it's like Trevor Bauer or Matt Ariza and all this off the field stuff. It's like Rosanna Dana. You know, if it's not one thing, it's another. I don't know what to say there. I mean, he's a great quarterback. Hopefully he gets his personal life straightened out.
Yeah, I concur with you. Isn't it shocking they found 3 AR-15s at the Super Bowl parade with bullets having been fired out of it? And I guess 6 different guys now, and they're still looking for others who fired shots.
Well, they were carrying around AR-15s at the parade. Yeah, I mean, that just goes to show you it's a culture of guns, you know. Exactly.
Everybody's wearing these big, heavy overcoats. Why? Because they got weapons hidden underneath them. It's awful. I'm sorry what America has become in that era. John, this has been fun. You go enjoy the Mountain West Conference tournament. For all of our viewers on our podcast, we'll be back in the studio on Monday. And as a side note, I say thank you to John because he's tolerated a lot this week. I spent 8 hours in the emergency room at a hospital with a back issue. And I will tell you, this is the best medicine I've had all week because I feel good doing this podcast. But
right on.
Damn, was that hard.
Yeah.
And I hope to clear it, come out the other side and be better. This has been fun. John, go enjoy the tournament. We'll talk to you come Monday on our podcast brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Center Stores and by North County Eye Center, Poway and Escondido. Thanks for everybody for being with us. A reminder, go to my website, LeeHacksawHamilton.com, big orange box on the homepage. Fill that out and join our Hacksaw's Insiders group as we're rolling out things in 2024. You'll be on our email list. And a reminder, we'll be back with the popular Fans Forum next Monday. John, have yourself a great sports weekend. Don't come home if the Aztecs don't win.
Yeah. Hey, you get better. All right. I hope you're on the mend, Lee.
Thank you. And thank you for everybody joining us on Hacksaw's Headlines.
Join us again for Hacksaw's Headlines on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And find the audio version on your favorite podcast app.
Touchdown, San Diego!
For more content, go to LeeHacksawHamilton.com.